to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside the boss, Jesse Marsch, and our resident number 9, Charlie Davies. And just to get this out of the way early, we're expecting big things from all of you listening and watching in 2024, so no pressure. Also, we have a fun show for you today. We're talking Josh Sargent and Haji Wright, who are back amongst the goals. Nice to see Josh being healthy as well. We await the first U.S. men's national team roster of 2024. And where do American players rank among the world's best? You might be surprised, or maybe you're not. Anyway, we know that this sport is known by many names around the world: football, calcio, soccer, fuchiball. So as we do to start off every show, we're going to play a little game, and we call it What You Want Word of the Day. So Jesse and Charlie, which language calls the beautiful game Sepak Bola? Charlie, I'm coming to you. Sepak Bola.
Ooh, I'm getting strong Indonesian vibes.
Charlie, I feel like he is researching. Does he have the answers? I feel like he's nailed it again.
I'll say this: the first.
I'll go Malaysia. I'll go Malaysia then.
So
Yeah,
Malaysia,
we're talking that part of the world. That's where I'm gonna go. Yes, okay. Exactly.
Listen, Charlie, you were right. Congratulations to Charlie Davies.
Yeah, I told
Clearly
you, this is
cheating.
not fair.
He's cheating.
This is not fair. Charlie's cheating.
But
I swear on everything. I have an ear. I have a good understanding of dialect.
Yeah. Or he's on the email that I got as well.
I promise you not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Paramount Plus is your exclusive home for the 2024 AFC Asian Cup. It runs from January 12th to February 10th. Make sure you go check that out. Indonesia kicks off their campaign against Iraq on January 15th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So shout out to Paramount Plus for giving us some visuals of that particular tournament. I'm excited to see how that one all plays out. Now, Jesse, you kind of look like you're in Indonesia. I don't even know where you are right now. What's happening?
He's in Macau.
Viva Mexico. Okay. I'm down in El Cerritos Beach, Mexico. I'm at actually a friend of mine is the owner of a taco shop down here, a sweet restaurant called Barracudas.
Is his name Kunu, by chance?
If you guys ever make it down here, you got to stop by Barracudas. The tacos are insane, and he makes a mean mezcalita.
All right, well, I wish we had one of those before the show. I think we'd have a real spicy show, as it were. Well, speaking of the show, let's get into some transfer news, because the transfer window is now open. And apparently Tom Bogert from The Athletic is reporting that Miles Robinson, 26-year-old center back from Atlanta United, who has 27 caps for the U.S. men's national team and made 150 appearances for Atlanta United, is now making a move to FC Cincinnati. He's staying in MLS. So, Jesse, I'm coming to you. Are you a bit surprised that Miles is staying domestic?
Yes, very surprised. I mean, I'd read that he, with his free agency, had been talking to a few different MLS clubs, but I thought with his talent and ability that now a move to Europe was perfect for him. So you never know what the options are. Obviously, every player has to evaluate what the situation is, what the finances are, what the opportunities are. But I think a player like him has to be in Europe, has to be testing himself, has to be pushing to be the best that he can be. And even if it's a league like the Championship or Holland or some of these that aren't the premier leagues, the best way to create a stepping stone to get there is to now have a little bit on your resume that you have a year and a half where you're playing in Europe, where you're playing for clubs that are competing for Champions League. Maybe you're getting into Champions League, and then you can showcase what your talent is. So we've talked a lot on this show. We've talked a lot about some players that are testing themselves and putting themselves in over their head. Pepe is a good example, and being rewarded for it. So I find it a bit of a shame, but again, each player's situation is a little bit different.
You just triggered Jimmy. That's all I'm saying.
Well, not necessarily triggered. I want to bring up Djordje Mihailovic, because he's made 11 appearances for the U.S. men's national team, 5 of them coming during the 2023 Gold Cup. He's leaving Azad Alkmaar in Holland, one of the leagues that Jesse just stated as a good stepping stone into potentially something bigger. He played 36 total times, or 36 games, excuse me. He's made 10 starts, scored 2 goals, and now it looks like he is leaving them in this January transfer window and coming back to MLS. Now, he played for the Chicago Fire and the Montreal Impact. He's 25 years old. And he went and did what everybody, I would say, wants our younger players to do. Go test yourself in Europe, or 25, 26, where Miles Robinson is as well. Go see what you can do. Take that step. But he's coming back. So, Charlie, I'm going to come to you on this. Do you feel like the perception is that we're looking down upon Djordje Mihailovic because he tried and he quote-unquote failed and it didn't work out for him? There's plenty of reasons why it potentially didn't work out for him. Coaching changes, not playing in his best position, so on and so forth. But instead of pushing himself to go find another club in Europe, he's coming back to MLS. And I already know what the response is going to be from most fans, especially U.S. men's national team fans. Where are you on this?
Saying that you ventured out to Europe to try to take your game to the next level, finding the right club, playing in Champions League, playing in European competition, and coming back to MLS, that's not failing. It didn't work out. And he would tell you himself, I'm sure, that things didn't go according to how he planned or how he had hoped. But Alkmaar is a big club in the Dutch league, and if you're not playing at Alkmaar, given that PSV, Feyenoord are the two top teams, it's tough to go to another place that you would feel would be an equivalent to Alkmaar if you didn't succeed in the way that you had hoped, versus going to back home where you're most likely going to be guaranteed playing time. You're going to have a larger contract than you did in Holland. And I understand where he's coming from because I've been there, and I know a number of players who've been there. If you kind of feel like I'm not, this isn't going the way I had hoped, and I think I could go back, get a long playing time, find that joy again in playing, and then what? And then what? Make a move at 29, 30? I mean, no. There's probably not another new move.
That's what I mean. He's
right.
This is an interesting decision because then now he's basically locked into MLS.
Yes, he is.
The rest of his career, most likely.
Most likely. And
I tried to make a move at 29 and 30 after my World Cup appearances, and it was hard for me because teams are like, we're not going to take a 29, 30-year-old guy when we can just find. We have one in the academy who's 18 or 19.
You're not going to invest in the unknown at someone who's 29 and 30. That's just not going to happen. But what I can tell you is Djordje Mihailovic was on the verge of being in the MVP race in MLS before his ankle injury with Montreal. So if he can win an MVP and play at that level, then he'll get a national team call-up. And then it's on him to perform at that same level at the international stage. So it's not a failure at all. And I don't think anyone would look at Djordje Mihailovic because he still played. He didn't excel in the way that he wanted to, but he still played.
Jesse, I want to give you some context because I've talked about this before on the previous iteration of the show. And the context is this. When I got to play in the World Cup in 2006, I held my own against some of the best players in the world. And what I learned throughout that process is that you're either ready when that whistle blows or you're not. It didn't really matter where you played prior to the whistle blowing for a World Cup game or where you're going to play afterwards. It's like, are you ready at that moment? And in that tournament, me and Clint Dempsey came back as two of the highest rated players for the U.S. Now, and we only had MLS experience. So I'm a little bit torn because I'm probably not the right person to talk about MLS versus Europe. I, of course, would have loved to have gone over there, and I had something fall through with Hanover and Steve Cherundolo, who was pushing really hard for me behind the scenes to get over to the Bundesliga, which I thought would have been a great league for me and to maybe see out my last 4 or 5 years and maybe come back afterwards. But I ultimately plied my trade in MLS, and I thought I made the most of it. But from a coaching perspective and putting your coaching hat on, which I don't think you ever take off at this point because I think you're way past being a player, how do you evaluate Mihailovic and Miles Robinson do you see it as they're not ready for the adversity? Do you see it as them being soft? I'm just throwing these out there as kind of perceptions. Not necessarily it's real. But
don't forget finances.
Finances come into it, of course, too.
Yeah, I mean, let's take the finances and put it as the last category, right? Because I think it should be. It should be more about how do you maximize your potential in your career. I think that Djordje Mihailovic and Miles Robinson are different because I think Miles Robinson's potential is actually higher than Djordje's. And it's not that Djordje's a good player, right? And he has big potential. He's still young. I love that he went over there, and I thought the move to AZ was a great move. So I'm a little bit surprised that it's ended abruptly at this point. I would have thought that the club would have taken more time to invest in him, especially with his age and his profile. Is it a failure? No, I absolutely don't think it's a failure. I think that he went there. He tried his best to apply himself. He had opportunities to play. I saw one match that he played, and he didn't stick out either way. I thought he fit in the game fine, but he didn't make an imprint. And obviously, when you're an attacking player, those are you need to find ways to score goals, to get assists, to have impacts on games, which makes it a little bit more difficult in some ways to establish yourself at clubs in Europe than maybe if you're a defender. Or a defensive midfielder or a position like this. Coming back, if I were part of his team, I would encourage him to stay in Europe and see if he could find something else. And maybe it's a league like Austria. Maybe it's a league like Denmark. Maybe it's a second Bundesliga. Maybe it's a championship. Maybe it's something like this where he still tries to establish himself, continues to be outside of his comfort zone, and see if he can grow within the European system and then find other opportunities to go to bigger clubs down the road. But
do you see that thinking that MLS will always be there?
Yes, right. Absolutely. Right. And it's not bad. I mean, we know MLS is growing, and we know it's a competitive league, and we know that players are still developing here. But if you've got your foot in the door in Europe, stay. Keep going, man. Don't give up. Like, this happens in life. Like, you have steps backwards. The development paths aren't always just taking off in an easy way. You have to fight for everything. So, and by the way, you establish character, you establish grit, you establish ability to understand what it takes to be successful. And this is not just football. This is life, right? So, okay, coming back, I would encourage him to try to stay, but who knows what his opportunities are. Yes, you're right. Then you have to, if at the end everything seems even, or you're not so sure, and the finances come in and it makes sense to come back to MLS and you feel like you're going to be the focal point of something, then maybe you should consider that. But again, I'm not a European snob about football, but if you want to really challenge yourself, right? The fact is, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to go to places where you're in over your head. You have to feel like, man, every day this is so hard, and I have to fight for everything. And when you succeed, the feeling is incredible, right? So, yeah, that's again, this is for me with Miles as well. Like, why not? Why not? Can always come back to Cincinnati in a year, just like Djordje is right now. Go for it, man. Like, shoot for the stars and see what happens.
I want Jesse to be my life coach. That's what I want.
Jesse, I think it just comes down to timing, right? Everything works out in our world and on this schedule, and when is the right time to make the move versus when a team is not looking for that certain position. And I think in Miles Robinson's case, it's a little difficult to make a big move as a free agent to a European club that makes sense for him, given where he's trying to go at this stage in his career. Because he's not the youngest player, right? So you need to be going to a top league or a team that is a top of the table in a smaller league where they're still playing in European competition to continue to push. So I agree with you. I would love to see Miles in Europe, but if you're also thinking on the flip side, man, I get a large contract, guaranteed money, and, given the center back depth pool, I think I still will be in a position to play, that no one's really going to push me out if I'm playing consistently with Cincinnati and we're winning, which they still have an incredible team in MLS. I think he's in a good position. And Jimmy, to go back to your original point of you and Clint playing in the 2006 World Cup, you could argue, hey, the Saudi Arabian team, most of them played domestically, and they beat Argentina, who were the eventual World Cup champions. And there was a good amount of players who had solid World Cups throughout the whole group stage for Saudi Arabia. But does that mean they should only play in Saudi Arabia if they want to maximize their potential? It's like, no. Same with Kylian Mbappe on the opposite end of the spectrum. Guy scores a hat trick in a World Cup final. But are people thinking he should stay at PSG for the rest of his career? No. You got to leave France.
Finances.
Go to La Liga. Go to the English Premier League and play tough competition week in and week out. And that's how you continue to fulfill your potential, by getting pushed every single week. And I think it's similar to Americans who are playing in Major League Soccer, who are super talented. It's go out where nothing is guaranteed. Every week you have to earn your spot. It just gives you that a little bit of texture that you're missing if you just stay in MLS and you're going to play every week. When you don't have to, look over your shoulder. You're not getting pressure from a coach or from the crowd because of relegation or European places. There's just an added fuel to your development when you're playing with those type of stakes on the line. And I think Christian Pulisic is a great example. Dortmund goes to Chelsea. Expectations are here, not playing, feels like he should. I think we all think, watching him play, that he should be getting more minutes given what he's done on the pitch. Not happening. Goes to Milan, a new challenge. Could have easily come back to MLS. Could have easily taken a crazy salary over 5-6 years guaranteed, but wants to keep pushing because I think in his mind, he wants to be world class. And the only way that's going to happen is if he goes to these clubs and plays and proves it every single day.
But all right, we're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're talking Americans abroad from the weekend after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Jesse Marsch, and we're doing a little Americans abroad. What do the guys get up to from our player pool this past week/weekend? Now, we want to say that we're recording this before Celta de Vigo plays Real Betis, which could be a potential Luca de la Torre versus Johnny Cardoso showdown. Hopefully they both get to play. That would be pretty sweet. But getting into the results, Milan in the round of 16 in the Coppa Italia beat Cagliari 4-1. Pulisic came off the bench and had an assist to Rafael Leao, even though he kind of just played it out wide to Leao, and Leao did the rest. But whatever, an assist.
100% assist.
Pulisic, 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 7 games. Long may that continue. I was actually really interested to see how Samuel Chukwueze played because he got the opportunity to start in this cup game over Pulisic, and I think Pulisic's fine. I'm a big Chukwueze fan, but he didn't make most of that opportunity. Nottingham Forest with a big 2-1 win over Manchester United. Matt Turner goes from 0 to hero and kind of back to 0. Another bad mistake from him led to a goal. The transfer window is open, so we'll see.
And then back to hero, no?
Then back to hero, yeah, from 0 to hero and then hero. Yeah, I don't know. He's got to figure out his feet, or just, you know what? Don't play the ball back to him anymore. That's my tip for the Nottingham Forest defenders. Juve beat Roma 1-0. Starts for Weah and McKinney right next to each other. That was pretty sweet. Middlesbrough losing 3-1 at home and to Coventry. And Coventry, Haji Wright scores in back-to-back games. He also scored in the 2-2 draw versus Swansea. And then Norwich 1-1 versus Southampton. Josh Sargent is back and healthy, and he scores the game-tying goal in that one. So, boys, I'm going to get to you guys. Jesse, I'm coming to you first. Which player abroad really stood out for you this past week?
Well, I always feel like we're covering sort of the higher end of the players, and it's good to, I think, include some of the other players that are establishing themselves at different places. So Haji Wright, right, at Coventry has actually had a good season, and he scored a goal that is actually one of these goals that's going in, and then he kind of stole it. So it's maybe not the best goal to talk about, but the fact that he scored 6 goals in 12 games, I think it's time to talk a little bit about some of his performances. And Haji's one of these players, a little bit like Tim Weah, that can play in different spots. And even if I go back, I first saw him when we met Tyler Adams, when he was with the U17s down in Bradenton. Tyler was 15 at the time, and Haji was the striker. So Haji, for me, is still in his best spot, probably a striker, but he has flexibility to his game. And I thought back then that he had big potential to be a big player in the U.S. system. And he's kind of sort of wavered through Europe and been at different clubs and done okay, but not really established himself anywhere. Maybe looking back, it might have been better for him to go to MLS for a couple of years to kind of try to really establish himself and get himself moving forward, and then seek out a transfer to a European club. Nonetheless, he's still young. And they've been playing him mostly on the left. And when he likes to come in on his right foot, and he's scored goals by putting it in the opposite corner. Sometimes he scored goals from picking up rebounds and being clever in the box. But he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's clever, he's good with the ball. He has all the tools to be a great player. And hopefully he can continue on this path in Coventry, and then maybe find a way to either help Coventry push themselves in the championship, maybe get into a playoff spot, or then catch the eye of some other clubs that are a little bit bigger in England and maybe have a chance to play in the Prem.
Yeah, that would be exciting. Long may that continue, this run that he's on. 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 6 games. Charlie, who stood out for you?
You know, we always talk about, like Jesse said, the top guys of the echelon, of the upper echelon, but one guy that has kind of gone silent a little bit is Tim Weah. So, you know, due to injury,
he's 1,000% upper echelon. But okay, keep going.
But he's been not.
Charlie's going out on a limb. He's going out on a limb here.
I really am, because he's been a non-talking point for a while. I mean, he's been injured since October 29th, like the end of October or something like that. So, he had a hamstring injury. He was back. He's played past couple of weeks, but last match against Roma, he played 90 minutes. And we know how important he is to the success of the U.S. men's national team, just because he has that pace, that kind of like burst that not many players have in our pool. So in terms of stretching back lines, and we know he's playing as a right wing back, and he played right back and left back for Lille before moving to Juve. So he's kind of got this all around quality in terms of he can play either wing, either side, whatever's asked of him. You know, you can depend. He's consistent. And so I love the fact that he's back on the pitch. He's healthy, played a full 90 against a tough Roma side. They got the win 1-0, but he's going to be very important to the success of the U.S. men's national team moving forward.
Yeah, producer Ivis coming up with a great stat. He was 7 for 7 in his passing in the final third versus Roma. So shout out to Timo Weah and making good soccer decisions under pressure.
Yes.
All right, so for me, I'm going to go with Josh Sargent. Guy hasn't played, and I don't know. We're talking Timo Weah not playing since October. Sargent hasn't played since August. Well, this is his second game back, and he gets his goal against Southampton. And what I really love about Sargent is his ability to change his speed in tight spaces. And I think he's done much better job of that as he's continued to evolve as a player. But his little change of speed, his burst, it takes a shot, and it goes between the defender's legs and trickles into the back post. It felt purposeful, not lucky. And what's interesting is that Norwich, his club, they were doing really well to start the season. Then he gets hurt, and now they're mid-table in the championship. He comes back, and he's already having an immediate impact. And I really like Sargent's game in a lot of different ways. I think he's a tireless worker. He'll run the channels. He'll do the dirty work, the thankless work up top. He's getting much better at holding the ball up. And I think that when you bring him into the conversation about our striker player pool with Balogun and with Ricardo Pepi, it becomes pretty interesting. And I think what's fun is that,
interesting about it, Jimmy?
Well, I appreciate you setting me up that way, Charlie. I would say that they all bring a little bit something different. And if you're Gregg, though they do share some similarities and where they want to get the ball and how they want to bring other players into the game, there's something about Sargent that I think he has maybe a little bit more versatility. Not that Balogun and Pepi can't play in the wing, but I think Sargent could go out there and thrive potentially. And if we do have some injuries, or if players aren't performing at a high level, I think Sargent should be considered in a potential winger set. Or if we're going to start to slot into a 2-striker system, as we saw with Balogun and Pepi, as a possibility. And I like what that could potentially look like moving forward. I think Sargent could be a nice add into that equation too. I'm just glad he's back, because when he's healthy, he's very good. And even when he played in the World Cup in Qatar, we were a different team when he was on the field as opposed to when he wasn't. And we just need this guy to stay healthy, because I think he gives us different options within the team. So Jesse, any thoughts on Sargent in particular?
Yeah, I like him. I think you're right. He is a hard worker. He's got a lot of tools to his game. He's got some pace. He's clever. He's good in combination. He can hold balls. He's good in the box. He's got a lot of ways he can finish. He's one of these strikers that maybe the thing that prevents him from always performing at the highest level is he doesn't have one massive strength. Like most strikers need to be really fast, really strong, good in the air, clever 1v1. You need some kind of quality. And what Sargent winds up doing is he's a good all-around striker, and then he can be clever in the box. And that can be enough. That can be enough to be an effective striker at a high level. But he's got to maximize then his ability to sniff out plays and score easy goals, which again, we all know go Inzaghi. You can go down the list of strikers that this was the way that they played. And so, yeah, I mean, I've always liked Josh, and I think that he would fit in the ways that I like to play the game. But, just keeping him healthy, keeping him scoring goals, right? Making sure that he's maximizing his chances around the goal. Those will be keys for him.
Well, now he's got 4 goals and an assist in 310 minutes in the championship. If you do the math at home, that is a goal or an assist every 60 minutes. That's a pretty good rate of return for Mr. Josh Sargent. So we'll see how he continues to perform for Norwich as they try to work their way back up into the table and potentially into a playoff spot so they can get back into the Premier League as well. All right, some notable weekend fixtures coming up for everybody. We got Fulham versus Rotherham in the FA Cup. That's happening on Friday at 3:30 p.m. On Saturday, Coventry and Haji Wright taking on Oxford in the FA Cup. Sunday, we got Empoli versus AC Milan at 6:30 a.m. for all you early birds. That's on P+. Then we got Nottingham Forest versus Blackpool. Will Matt Turner start in this FA Cup match? Will he be rested, or what the future of Matt Turner? I'm very curious about how Nuno Espirito Santo handles his situation moving forward. Then Salernitana versus Juve on the Golazo network on 12 p.m. on Sunday as well. All right, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the January camp that some people call Camp Cupcake, which I clearly have an issue with, but we don't need to talk about it right now because we got this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you right after this. Welcome back to Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy alongside Jesse and Charlie, and we're going to talk a little January camp because there are some haters out there that don't like this camp. Like, it's just for MLS guys. It's just for guys that aren't playing much in Europe. And I actually think it's a really vital camp because you get an opportunity to see the deeper part of our player pool and who can emerge from the pack to potentially push into the first team. And I was one of those players. So I saw a lot of value in it. Jesse, I know you were part of a couple of January camps, as were you, Charlie. And you feel the same way, Jesse, yes?
Well, you call it Camp Cupcake. For me,
that's what the haters call it.
I'm just saying that's the only camp I was ever invited to. So for me, this was the World Cup final every session. But then I was there as an assistant too, and I think there's almost 2 categories of players that are in that camp. And when you're the coach, you need category 1, which is the players that have been part of the first team, and you need them to help establish what the environment's like, what the training is like, what the football is, what the level is, so that they're translating that in a big way. And it's a chance to apply leadership skills to some of these players and give them bigger roles in the process of what you're trying to do with the national team. And then obviously, you could argue more important or just as important is the young players who maybe it's their first chance to be in with the national team, and the guys that you want to take a real good look at, probably give a start in the camp and see if they, at the international level, if their talent can translate. So, yeah, I mean, I know that it's not always the most exciting for the fans because it doesn't have all the big names attached, but it's really vital in the process of what you're trying to create with the national team.
I thank you for saying that, Jesse. I've been trying to say that for so many years, but the haters are going to hate. Charlie, I know you appreciate the January camp as well.
I do. I mean, the first January camp I was a part of, and whenever you get called in with the U.S. men's national team, it's massive. It's not just a game; it's a whole camp. So there's the fitness aspect of, you're getting fit for the next season. So you kind of get a head start, which I also was very appreciative of. Maybe not at the time when you're actually doing the fitness drills, but I liked coming in knowing that I'm going to be better prepared to hit the ground running start of the season, because in Scandinavia it was very similar to MLS's schedule. So I always start preseason on the upper foot. So we played Sweden in the friendly for the January camp, and Sasha Kleshin had a hat trick. That kind of set him up because every club now, you had your regular season with Chivas at the time, USA, to back up to say, hey, I'm performing at a really high level. I'm consistent throughout the league. But they might say, we don't know how to compare that. Well, you do now because I scored a hat trick against Sweden. So that opened up a lot of doors. I know Celtic were very interested in trying to sign him at the time. And then obviously Anderlecht is a club that ended up working out for him. But it's a great opportunity to understand exactly what the manager wants. And I think it's more important growing that bond, showing your quality, all your qualities, what you're capable of, because that is for a young player to be in that environment for 3 weeks or so. That's the value. I'm on the same page. I know exactly where I stand. I know what I need to do to get there. And now I'm motivated, and now I just got to go out there and play. So it's a big camp. And for all the listeners out there, this is a camp where you can identify the future in a way.
Right.
Some of the kids who maybe fell through the crack and didn't go to Europe right away that are in MLS, you're going to know a lot more about them after this camp.
January camp roster to be announced this Friday on January 5th, so be on the lookout for that. And there is one game happening in this camp. The U.S. are going to take on Slovenia on January 20th. So, boys, one player each. Who do you want to see included in this and why? Jesse Marsch, who is your player?
Miles Robinson.
Oh, he loves Miles Robinson. I think I'm number one fan. I think you got Miles Robinson pajamas. That's what I think you have, Jesse.
I would. If you have them, send them over. Size medium.
Size medium.
No, I think he's an important player for the future of the national team. And this is the category one that I had just spoken about. You need him now to come in with the idea. If I'm Berhalter, I'm saying you're the captain. You're the captain for this camp, and you need to act like it. And you need to learn how to lead the national team. You need to set the standard for how we train every day, how we work, how we talk, how we think. And you've got to now make sure that you're establishing yourself as one of the most important players moving forward. And for me, as important as some of the young players are, this may be even more important, is making sure that every guy that you're taking to a World Cup understands exactly what the responsibility of being the part of the national team is and how to put it to practice at every level of what's happening. And I don't care if you're number 1 on the list or number 26 once the World Cup comes. You need a group that is so motivated, so clear, so together, so strong that nothing's going to get in the way. And so how do you do that? This is the process over years of creating standards of now the expectations for what it takes to be really successful, to be winners, to now and then when it's the toughest moments in the biggest games, make sure that every guy is ready to do whatever it takes. And by the way, that's the fun of the frickin' national team. That's what it should be. You're wearing the frickin' colors and the crest, and you should feel like in every way you'll do whatever it takes to make sure that your country's successful. So that's the way I look at this right now for Miles Robinson. And of course, there's some young guys that you guys will touch on that I think are going to be important to see what their level's at. But for me, Miles Robinson now needs to step up and take a major role.
Jesse Marsch, motivational speaker, everybody. You can hire him at jessemarsch.com. That was an awesome. I'm like pumped up. I want to run through a wall and put on the red, white, and blue again. Charlie, how about you? Who's your player to choose for this camp?
The player that I most want to see in this January camp is Diego Luna, because we saw just how good he was at the Under-20 World Cup. He was the best player. And what stood out to me is he's a kind of a different player. He has a different player profile than most players in the pool in terms of, I was talking about it with Nigel Reo-Coker this morning on Morning Footy. He's kind of in the mold of like a Griezmann, a Dybala. He's not really your prototypical winger bombing down the field. He's not like a straight up inverted winger, although he could play that. So he comes inside. He's good in tight spaces. He scored 4 goals in his last 5 matches in MLS this past season. I just think he has a gift. And so the fact that he can play in tight spaces combined, he's not afraid, he's not shy of taking players 1v1, creating his own shot, creating for others, combining. He has something special. And so that's one player I really want to see in this group and see how much he can be pushed and if he's ready for the international stage with the men.
Charlie,
and he's going to be a big part of the Olympic team, I think.
I've been Diego Luna's #1 fan, like Jesse is with Miles, for forever, and you took my pick. and I'm a little bitter about it. You got there first. I love Diego Luna. He's cute as a button. He knows how to pull the strings. He can help you in so many different ways. My issue, though, is with regard to Gregg and the system. Will he allow a player that has to find those pockets of space to influence the game? Because sometimes we might just bypass that player. We're maybe lacking patience, or maybe we're too much of a hurry.
That there now.
I get it. No, he's adapted accordingly. I understand. Yeah. I agree. But I don't know. I'm a big Diego Luna fan, and I hope he gets the opportunity. But I'm going to go with Josh Winder. Now, Josh Winder, everybody, left Louisville City in the USL, went over to Benfica, and really hyped 18-year-old center back. Guy's disappeared. He played in the UEFA Youth League a couple times for Benfica. He played for the U23s a couple times, and he hasn't seen the field or been on any teams. I don't think he's hurt. And I want to know what happened to Josh Winder. So I think this is a perfect time to bring him back into camp. If you can work something out with Benfica, get him. Sometimes we've used national team camps when Christian Pulisic wasn't playing well, and obviously he's a big name. You're always going to bring him in. But to kind of get him going again, get his confidence going, making him be around his friends, which always helps too. So Josh, bring him back in, see where he is mentally and emotionally. Can you get his form back up, and then understand what's happening at Benfica? I'm sure the appropriate people know what's going on, but I'm kind of curious, and this could be a good opportunity to be around a Miles Robinson, to be around some older players that have been through what he's been through and can maybe share some of their experiences to get him back going in the right direction. Because I don't know what happened to him, but I was really high on his potential, and we have yet to see it get realized. That said, he's very young, and I'm sure he's going to learn a ton from probably getting that Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Looks like he's getting punched in the face with some adversity, and how will he respond to that? It's obviously something we're very curious about. But I like Josh Winder, and I'd like to see a couple of our young players in this camp mix in with some of our older players and get a result against Slovenia.
But I think he's got to earn it. No,
that's true. Yeah. Sure. That's true.
You can't just hand him a national team camp because he's not playing at Benfica.
Well, no, I get that. But isn't that an opportunity where, I don't know. I don't know all the details. But
yeah.
The January camp feels like the camp where you could try. Of all the camps that we have, Jesse, the January camp feels like the one where you could extend that olive branch and just get an idea of where this kid is at. And
because you're saying he would be playing if he was in MLS. So therefore, because he played at the U20 World Cup, he's super talented. He opted to go test himself at Benfica. It didn't work out, but the talent's there. You see him part of the project, or you hope that he will fulfill that potential, and you want him part of the project, so you call him in just to see where he is. Because he was called in April. He was called into the U.S. men's national team camp. So, it's not that you haven't seen him before. You know what he's capable of. Either you see that, hey, he has the qualities to be a top center back in this pool, or you're like, no, he's got to be playing consistently because I haven't seen it. So it's one or the other.
Now, Jesse, if you were the national team coach, don't you maybe potentially set aside one or two slots to see like a Christopher Lund or these players that were calling in just to see how they would interact with the group or to be around the player pool?
I think so. It is great to have some younger guys and to see, do they have potential? I remember, Charlie, even this is when I was a player, but you and I were in a January camp, and this was when you were really young, and I think it was Lee Wynn's first January camp or first camp with the national team. And of course, when you have high potential players, but at the same time, you were already playing matches, and so was Lee. Right. And so it wasn't like they were pulling him from the abyss. It's still got to be that you're seeing players and watching them at the different clubs and levels that they're playing at, and you see something that catches your eye, and you say, okay, there's potential there. So, I think it works. It works on both levels. Obviously, there's potential, but you also have to earn it for me.
No, I agree. I think that performing well helps, and playing helps no matter what level you're at, just to showcase what you're talking about. So I'll walk back what I said.
It's the accountability part, right? So it's everyone knows you get into a camp by how you perform, right? It's not just popularity contest or whatnot. That the national team has always been who's in form, who's earned a call up versus, hey, this guy's not playing at all, but we're just going to keep calling him up.
Yeah, that's a dangerous precedent, I guess, if you start calling guys in that didn't deserve it. So conversation for another time. We're going to take our next break here at Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to discuss the absence of U.S. men's national team players on the Guardian's top 100 best footballers of 2023. You're not going to want to miss this, so do not go anywhere.
Really and truly, you got to put more pressure on these players to say, perform, do what you do. But the biggest thing is stay available. Because every time we talk about US players, they're always injured, they're this, they're that. So if I dare call them soft, I'm a bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Calling players soft. What's Nigel Reo-Coker doing? By the way, great sweater there, Chuck. Looks like you're wearing the same one still. How did you respond to Nigel Reo-Coker taking a shot at
2 hours
our player
ago?
pool? Because Nigel always likes to take shots at our player pool. Christian Pulisic,
he does.
most notably.
Basically, I said, yeah. I mean, that works for England. It works for France. It works for every country in the world. You gotta be healthy. You gotta be on the pitch to make an impact. So, you looked at Gio Reyna for a while and Christian Pulisic, Tyler Adams. These are big players for our pool, and they were injured the past couple of seasons. So Tyler Adams is still dealing with his hamstring now. You had Gio Reyna, who had a broken bone from Nations League, but before that it was a lot of muscular issues. And Christian, same thing, who's been in and out during his Chelsea spell, at least with injury. So Christian's back playing. He's consistent. He's available. That's all I got to say. Gio, he's available, but he's not playing. And for our player pool, it's not that we don't have the deepest player pools like some of these other countries. We have a pool, and these guys are in good positions. We see Weston McKennie, what he's doing at Juve right now is incredible. The fitness, the amount of ground he covers, but the more tactical discipline that he's exhibiting this year, I think has been fantastic, because to play it for Allegri, you have to know your defensive principles. If you don't play his way, you're not playing. He's adapted, so that's good to see. Timothy Weah had dealt with a little bit of an injury, but now he's back. So now we have our guys back healthy, just waiting on Tyler Adams. I think he's the last one. And, I mean, they're all over in Europe because they chose the hard way. So I don't want to hear they're not tough enough. No, that's gone.
Okay,
Look at Jesse. Jesse again. Jesse could be taking the easy route too and take a number of these MLS jobs that would be dying to have him. And he's waiting. Like, you know what? I'm waiting to coach in Europe. I'm in Europe because I want to be the best coach I can possibly be and coach at the highest level and break down these barriers and do it. So that's the type of stuff I respect.
Well, from what I understand, I'm going to pretend Jesse isn't here. He's just waiting for Chivas USA to be resurrected so he could just coach them.
Absolutely.
That would be amazing. Bring everybody back. Question, Brad Guzan, bring everybody back. That's what we want. So the big topic here for us on this part of the show is, has our golden generation fallen behind because we don't have anyone on the top 100 footballers for 2023 for the Guardian? Should we be worried, Jesse Marsch, or I'm not that worried.
How many did we have in 2010 or 2014? Top 100. I would tell you zero.
Wikipedia.
I would tell you zero is my thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, and we were each to make a top 100 list, we wouldn't put an American on there right now. So I don't think.
You don't think Christian Pulisic's right there though?
I mean, he'd be the player that would be on the cusp. And if you went on Tyler's performances at Leeds, then maybe he would as well. But in reality, the top 100 players, just take the top best clubs in the world and take their lineups. and none of our players are playing at the top 10 clubs in the world. And when they have been at the top 10 clubs in the world, they're usually on the bench. So it's not an indictment necessarily on where we are with this player pool. It's more, what kind of performances are we getting out of our best players? Obviously, it's unfortunate that we have some injuries and some injury problems. But we want our players to go to Europe. We want them to challenge themselves. We want them to be in over their heads. I think that one of the things about our players is they're so built to fight and run and do whatever they can to establish themselves in every training session, in every game, that sometimes they're a little overzealous and don't always manage themselves professionally so that they can get the best performances out of matches. Tyler Adams is a good example of that. Like when I was at Leipzig, Tyler Adams was by far the hardest trainer or the player that would train the hardest every day. And there were some days where I would say to him, not that he needed to go easy, but he needed to calculate based on what was happening in the week and where he was, what was best for him to get the maximum potential out of what he could deliver on match day. So there's a balance in there. You know, I mean, a big thing that you'll hear in Europe is that he doesn't train well, right? But that those players also, the reason they're always in the lineup is because they perform on match day and they know how to manage themselves. Americans right now, they don't always have that liberty, right? They don't always have the leeway within a team to say, yeah, I'm not going to train that hard today because I know I'm going to play on the weekend. So I don't think our players are soft. I actually would go the other way and say they're guys that are willing to put it all on the line every day in training, and sometimes that leads to them being hurt. But, you know, obviously we need them to be on the pitch. We need them to be at top form. We need them at big clubs and playing in big matches, and this is the best way for our national team to make progress.
All right, we're going to take our last break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to get into our 2024 predictions. We're going to get the crystal ball out and make some predictions. And because we're all smart and handsome, we're probably going to get all of them right. So don't go anywhere. And we are at the very end of Call It What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies and Jesse Marsch. And we're going to give you some of our predictions for 2024. We got 5 in total of these predictions. And the first one I think is it's a bit of an easy one. A softball I'm throwing out to the guys. But who is going to win the CONCACAF Nations League? I'm going to go first, the U.S. men's national team. Jesse, what are you thinking?
USA.
Yes. Good choice. Charlie?
USA.
I mean, if anybody said Mexico, that'd be blasphemous. I don't know if we can be allowed to say that.
I am in Mexico.
You are in Mexico at Barracuda. Shout out to Barracuda.
How much you getting paid to say that?
All right, so that was an easy one, slam dunk for us. Here's a fun one. Charlie, coming to you first. How many goals will Christian Pulisic end this final season, or at the end of the season here in Serie A? He currently is on 6. How many do you think he's going to end up with?
11.
So he's got 5 more in his bag, even though he just scored the winner.
11.
Going into the break. Yeah?
I'd say 11.
Okay, confidence is a hell of a drug. Jesse, what do you got?
15.
15! Holy crap, I love that. That means he's getting a lot of minutes and he's staying healthy. That's a good. I said 12. I think he's just going to match that. So Charlie, I give you a hard time, but I'm closer to you than Jesse. Wow, I'm
an optimist.
Jesse.
I'm an optimist.
He clearly drinking the good
adapting,
stuff.
He's adapting more and more. Christian's ready to. He just needs to stay healthy. Stay healthy, Christian. Then he'll deliver.
All right, I'm calling it. The show is over. So thank you for listening and watching. As always, make sure to follow Call It What You Want wherever you get your podcasts. And please take a few seconds to leave us a rating. We'd really appreciate it. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review as well. And then catch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network, because we rule. And we'll see you next week. Thanks. See you soon.
Hasta luego. Hasta luego.
See.